What is the thing that worries you most? Well, I don't want to get coronavirus, but honestly, I'm gravely preoccupied with the loss of everything I worked my whole life for. My point is simply this. We must do everything possible to minimize the direct harm of the coronavirus, and that means right now protecting everybody from everybody. But what I argue for is, can we use this initial period to identify high and low risk groups so that the long term interdiction, the longer term, is limited to people at high risk of severe infection? And we potentially can de-isolate, if you will, a major portion of the population relatively soon.
But you're not telling me, not telling us, that we shouldn't be social distancing, are you?
I'm not. What I'm saying is, by all means, we take full advantage of this initial period of social distancing for all. It would be minimize the harms directly attributable to this bad pathogen, but also minimize the harms of destroying people's life savings, ravaging the economy. Because when you think about social determinants of health, and they're very important to me and prominent in my work all these years, you really can't unbundle what happens to the economy at large and what happens to people's health.
But we don't really know the numbers, right?
I was just looking at this issue of how bad is this relative to things that kill people every day? Population like Italy. Yes, this is terrible and all these deaths are concentrated, but it's 50 million people in Italy, and about 1% die a year. That's 500,000 deaths a year in Italy before coronavirus. That's 1,500 deaths a day. We're just riveted on the deaths from coronavirus in a way that distorts the impact it's having on the population. Germany and South Korea went out and found the mild cases, and from both of those countries, the data say 98 to 99% of all infections are mild. We have no reason so far to think that's any different here in the United States. So can we ramp up our assessment of cases in the population, figure out how many people have this, not just the ones with severe infection, differentiate on the basis of risk, and can we say 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, we've now been able to identify the 75%, 80%, 90% of the population that actually is at no higher risk of severe infection from coronavirus than from seasonal flu. And we don't shut down our society every year for seasonal flu. So those folks can go back to school, can go back to work, can reboot the economy, and we are going to now be able to essentially concentrate our protective resources to that smaller segment of the population most prone to severe infection, so we do an even better job of providing them all the services they need and protecting them.
Risk stratification means testing everybody, right?
Yes, well, widespread testing, absolutely.
But America's nowhere near being able to do that.
Well, we're ramping up fast. So, for example, New York, which was testing about 1,000 people a day, in a very short period of time has ramped up and is now testing more than 10 times that many. In fact, I think it's 15 times as many. They're above 15,000. I think other states obviously can do the same, and I think we can massively improve our detection.
One of the things you said in your article was that you worried about college kids being brought back home, right?
Yeah, and I'll confess something to you, Paul. I don't feel great right now. And I've actually arranged to get a test ordered. I've been achy for several days. I don't know if I've had fever or not. I've been able to catch it, but I felt like it's been intermittent. And, if you feel like you've got a viral illness in the middle of a pandemic, that's sort of it quacks like a duck, it flies like a, right? So maybe I have this thing. And if I do have it, my likeliest source of exposure was 3 of my adult children being sent back home. 2 from Boston, where they were attending university, and 1 from New York City, where she was working and her business laid her off because it shut down. Healthy young people from college and working in New York City, if they get sick with this bug, they may barely notice. Maybe it's not so great to have them infect their nearly 60-year-old parents or their 80-year-old grandparents. I think we can do a better job of separating high risk from low risk and treating those two populations differently. And I think a world of good could ensue from that.
Dr. David Katz, thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul.
And an important note, Paul recorded that conversation yesterday evening. This afternoon, after the president's press conference, Dr. Katz said the decision about when to return must be data-driven. He tweeted that, quote, "An arbitrary back-to-business deadline is dangerous folly." Other officials are alarmed by a timeline as what the president has discussed. And now William Brangham speaks with a leading public health voice who has warned of the real risks of bringing people back too quickly.